Good evening and welcome to the first playoff special for the Magpie Circle podcast this season. Yes, it's AFC Wimbledon. 180 minutes potentially separates us from a second playoff final trip to Wembley in 3 years. I think it's fair to say, clearly a lot of us are up for it, but I think there's possibly a little bit of disillusionment with recent home form. But tonight, hopefully, you can either get that out of your system or start getting excited that we could be going to I was going to say the Twin Towers or the Arch once again. Wasn't great Saturday. I'm sure Mark will be taking us through that. But I suppose, looking at it from an optimistic point of view, there was no real damage done. If you're feeling a bit sort of 50-50 at the minute, just think what Walsall fans must be feeling. 96 minutes into the game at Bradford, and you are in League One. In the 97th minute, deflection, and Walsall are in the playoffs against Chesterfield. I know we have one or two Walsall fans dialing into the show. Not sure if James is managing to dial in tonight. I'm sure he'll let us know on the message boards. Thanks as always to our official partners, JH Accountants, and to the Big Shed at Trent Navigation. Thank you to everyone for coming along to the live Lee Hughes show last week. Extremely candid, extremely honest, and hopefully you thought it was a great evening. Thank you to the near 200 of you that came along to the event. I think everyone really enjoyed it. Lee's asked me to pass on his thanks for all your support and taking a trip down memory lane. And I suspect from one of our flock who will be telling us later, he got a surprise bonus of Lee donating to the raffle his match-worn opening day shirt that he wore against Bradford City when he got that hat-trick. All that and more to come on the show tonight. We'll read some messages in a moment. Stell, let's get Saturday out of the way. I mean, anticlimactic, didn't turn up, very poor, outclassed, fed up, not going to the playoff. That's just a snapshot from some of the fan base. Let's get it out the way. Did it surprise you how bad we were?
Yeah, it did. I can't disagree with anything you've mentioned there. Any of them words, anything anybody's come up with. I must admit, I was really, really let down, I think, at the weekend. Look, we know it was an outside shot. We know that automatic was, I'm not going to say 1 in a million, but it was a 1 in 20 shot. But because of that, you've got the big crowd, big atmosphere. If anything, you've got I called it a no-lose gamble. You're in the playoffs, go and have a go. Just go and have a go. If you come up short, so be it. We're in the playoffs. We haven't lost anything. Just have a right go because you just never know. And if you want some more motivation, other than the 15,000 that are there, you've got a chance to spoil. An absolute credit to Doncaster, by the way, deserving champions, because that's what the league table says. But you've got a chance to spoil that. You've got a chance to stop away fans celebrating the league title in your own patch as well. And you know how much I hate seeing other teams celebrate on our patch. It's nothing against them, Doncaster and Grant McCann. Obviously, I know him, so wish them well and congratulations to them. But you don't want to see them celebrate on your patch. So because of that, I thought, do you know what? Come on, Notts, shackles off, just have a go. Just have a go. No downside to the consequence. You're going to be in the playoffs no matter what. And what we saw unfold was, for me, I thought it was a lethargic, tired, uninspiring performance. They looked devoid of ideas. Obviously, no David McGoldrick, which is a blow. But you understand the reason. I understand the reasons for resting him if he had a knock from the week before. But it looked like you'd stuck a pin in a sort of tire, and all the air had come out of it. I think you said that you mentioned off air the stats where I think we had 65% of the ball and did precious little with it. And again, it brings more power to your elbow to those that say, well, possession's only worth what you do with it, and that is absolutely true. Doncaster were by far the better team. And the best thing that goes our way is the 2-1 scoreline doesn't reflect the difference between the two teams in the 90+ minutes, because I thought we were really, really poor. And I was, like I say, given the circumstances, given the situation, really, really disappointed in Notts.
Okay, here's a nice message from a Wrexham fan, Emma Roberts. Hope you win the playoffs, Notts. Enjoyed our National League race together. Still can't believe we're off to the Championship. Still hasn't sunk in yet. From a Wrexham fan. Thank you for dropping that line to us, Emma. Right, let's get some thoughts and views from the flock before we start to move on to playoffs themselves. Good evening, says PJ Defiance. All the tin hats at the ready. It's time not to put on 3 amazing performances after everything the fans have gone through this season. Let's still believe. What odds a repeat Wembley final against Chesterfield, says Michael Bath. Come on, you pies, get this done, says Julie Henshaw. Evening from Graham Oates, who's over along at the A52 in Grantham. Bud Chatwin, evening all. Draw against Wimbledon at home and a win away. Then a Chesterfield final and a Didsey 125th minute, 25-yard streamer, and Stell losing his voice, trying to say, get in. There you go. I think we'd all take that, wouldn't we? See what odds you can get on that, Bud. I think you might get some pretty good odds on that at the moment. PJ Defiance adds, is it me, or do we have some sort of voodoo playing at home, or hoodoo playing at home? I want Meadow Lane to be a fortress and be feared by other teams. Jurgen Halligan, I wouldn't be disappointed with a draw on Saturday, as we're much better away from home currently. Wimbledon have the best defence in the league, only conceding 35 goals, so will be hard to break down. I'm guessing, Jurgen, you must supply all the statistics to Stell that he uses on the programme and take credit for them from you. Michael Bath goes on, it was in the National League days, so not so much these past 2 seasons. Home form has been abysmal. I'm looking on the bright side, Michael adds. What must it be like to be a Walsall fan right now? Epic collapse. I'm sure we'll be hearing from 1 or 2 resident Walsall fans later in the programme. Michael Fletcher, I think we need a lead going into the away league. Ian Cooksey, he's not happy bunny, is Ian? I think it's fair to say. Why, oh why would anybody trust this group of players? They've shown time and time again that they do not have the mental ability to put in a performance. We'll be talking about mental resilience alongside possession, completed passes, and all of that sort of thing in a moment, because I certainly think that without mental resilience, you ain't getting too far in a playoff campaign. And just for dramatic effect, Ian's repeated that twice. Gazza Lee came out of the ground very deflated on Saturday. The result didn't matter after all. I hope we put big emphasis on the home game, as a big result can put huge pressure on them. It's do or die. Evening from Stephen Newton. Chris Gosling, a show regular, listened to Stell's post-match summary saying the game was too big for some players, and I agree with him completely. Once again, big game mentality lacking, and that will be our undoing. Ian Haywood, I am worried about our Midland front line. Matt Palmer and his corners and set pieces, that's attracted a lot of debate this season. We will struggle next season in that area if it is not addressed, particularly potentially without Abbott. Evening all from Kay. If the players couldn't get up for Saturday's match with the atmosphere and turnout, I don't expect much better against Wimbledon. Chris Gosling goes on, the club can't ask for any more from the fans. In fact, given we've lost 8 home games, I actually think the players and staff are very lucky that the atmosphere hasn't turned toxic. Too many games, says Ian Haywood, that we should have won, as we've said 1,000 times this season already. Kieran Hickey, got my ticket for Saturday night. Still hopeful. keep the faith. Ian Hayward mentions Chesterfield and the playoffs, and I guess the way that they've sneaked in on the last day, a lot of people are tipping them to do well in the playoffs. We'll take a look at that later in the programme. I've got my tickets, says Marcus Darwin, but I have little belief. Michael Bath goes on, Notts have a habit of surprising you just when you don't expect it. I have no clue which team will show up on Saturday. Their inconsistency is maddening. Right, we'll take a little break from the messages. Stel, how concerned would you be going into a home first leg on Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, remember, on the back of Notts' recent home form? If you got your head coach's hat on, do you look to set up differently at home? Is it more of the same? Is the fact that it's a playoff, there's kind of automatically a reset anyway?
Yeah, I mean that's the bit you'd be hanging it on after Saturday, and after what we finished the season with 3 home defeats. You know, you can't be going into the home leg with any particular confidence based on momentum and all the things we talk about going into the playoffs. So I think you are hanging your hat on, and I said it on the radio. I said, maybe give them 2 or 3 days off,
Yeah.
go and get away, because I thought we looked tired, whether that's mentally tired, physically tired at the weekend. I just, George Abbott aside, he looked like the only one who had any legs on him. Now he's 19 years of age. You would expect him to be able to run, but it's not like we're an old aging team, particularly when Dizzy's not playing. So I just thought
large proportions of the games, though, which normally means the opposition tire because they're chasing it.
Yeah, well, that's when you're asking them questions. We didn't ask enough questions at all of Doncaster. But yeah, I thought I don't know. It was worrying. Got to be saying it worried me, the performance on Saturday, because it was, again, for all the reasons I've mentioned earlier, it was such a lethargic sort of, almost didn't look bothered. And I know that's not the case. That isn't the case. But it's what it almost looked like. It looked like it was, well, there's nothing really on this. It was almost like the players didn't believe they could get promoted. So then thought, you know what, we'll save a little bit and not go all out because we've got playoffs to come. That's what it looked like. I'm sure that isn't the case, but that was how it was. I was disappointed with that performance, particularly Saturday. So, yes, you have to sort of have a little bit of a reset. But what I will say is that the playoffs are a fresh start. There's a different mindset to it. Obviously, a 2-legged semi-final has got a different mentality about it than any set of league games you want to take, or any individual league game you want to take throughout the 46. So it is a little bit of a right line in the sand drawn. The league is finished. Now it's the playoffs. It's a mini cup competition, and you've got to navigate that. So look, we hope Dizzy's available because without him, we looked very, very ordinary, didn't we, at the weekend? He's the bit of magic. Great to see Sam Austin come off the bench and provide an assist, didn't he? Come on. But, he's the sort of player, and he doesn't get spoke about loads, Sam Austin, but he's the sort of player whose energy can be effective. It can rub off on people. So good to see him back. And, probably, almost definitely, I would think too soon for him to be considered to come into the mix for Saturday. But I tell you what, it was the sort of performance from one or two others that, whereas Stuart might not have been thinking about him at all, that after the performance on Saturday, he might start be thinking, I wonder how much I can get out of Sam Austin, because the performance was so lacking that he will look elsewhere. And I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 changes, because I'd say it was a worrying performance for me Saturday. It really was. And anybody who wanted to play in their playoff games didn't really transmit that to me. Say 1 or 2 aside, George Abbott was a sort of a beacon really in and amongst it, but I don't think there were too many others that really covered themselves in any sort of glory.
Yeah, a lot of the blueprint for Notts is based around process-driven statistics, data, and Notts continually if you like, achieve strong metrics like possession. I said this before. We will have most possession in the next 2 games against Wimbledon. I guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it. And if we get to the final, I guarantee we'll have more possession than the opposition. I'm not sure it's that accurate a measurement for winning a game. And one of the, from the fans, one of the concerns, and it's already been mentioned in a couple of the messages I've read out, is about mental resilience, ability to play the big game. Some people, not professionals like you, might say knots froze, couldn't handle it, whatever you want to call it. But I think you would want, for me, you'd want to see a change in them. Is it a mental thing, Stow, when you've played big games? Are there some players that struggle with that or not? I mean, every player's a human being. If you look back on your career, how important is the mental mindset in things like playoff games, big cup games, one-off games where you need to win for promotion, that sort of thing?
No, it's massive, absolutely massive. And we spoke about this last Wednesday with Hughesy, didn't we? Speaking about,
Yes.
a slightly different sort of topic, but the mental side of the game is absolutely massive. You get anybody in a division of any football, the actual skill levels, if you like, technical abilities, whatever you want to call it, between one squad and the next, one individual and the next, there's a very narrow sort of differential, if you like. All League Two players play within a certain level of skill. Some have got the ability to move up, and some might be at the top end of their ability. But in general, skill wise, there's not a great deal of difference from one team to the next. What helps maybe exaggerate that difference or lessen it is the mental strength of the mental side of things. And it's not being too, I'm not being too deep, or we're not talking about anything. We're talking about being able to handle when it matters. Of course, the old cliche, every game matters, every game's 3 points, is absolutely true. But we all know as human beings, as people, that certain games, sort of Saturday, for an example, obviously the playoff games, certain games are built up more and carry more on them. Local derbies were, always the same. There's always more build up to it. There's always more seems to be riding on it. So it gets more, and definitely some people thrive in that. Some players thrive with that. Some people struggle in a get 3,000 in Meadow Lane on a Tuesday night against somebody with no away fans. Some people struggle to get up for that. They dream of 15,000 in there, making an atmosphere with 2,000 away fans, and it's singing both sides and it's loud and whatever. That makes people thrive. Some people, some players. But you will find a few players that, I don't thrive in this. Believe it or not, it does happen. And like I said on the radio, was it Chris, whoever mentioned it? I did. I said I thought Saturday looked like it looked too big for one or two players. They had that poor of a game. It sort of passed them by. Now, that, of course, can just be a poor game, a game where you don't get involved, a game that passes you by, a bad game, basically. But it'll be interesting with these 2 playoff games where we know all the focus that's going to be on it. We know the attention it gets. We know the importance of it, to see, okay, what does Stewart do with his team? Does he share the same sort of thinking? He obviously works with them Monday to Fridays, throughout the week. Or B, does he go, do you know what? Am I going to pick my team based on who I think can handle the occasion better than maybe if it was just a league match in November or something like that? So the mental side of it is, let's say, it's part of being a professional. The top players play under that scrutiny, under that microscope every single game. The lower down the levels you come, yes, of course, you're scrutinised and you watched and whatever. But there are games that seem pivotal and more, more under the microscope, more focus on them. And sometimes players can just go a little bit AWOL. We used to, like I said, we used to call them training ground players. Players that had all the skill and ability back in the day. You see them on the training ground, absolutely unbelievable. And you'd look at, how come you're not playing? How come you are not a mainstay in the team? And then you'd see them get a shirt on a Saturday, and it's like a different player's got changed. So it can affect people, players in so many different ways. And like I say, and crikey me, I've performed badly in a lot of big games, and a lot of small games as well. But you have to produce when it matters. That's what defines a career. You have to produce when it matters. That is you've got to do it more often, more consistently, and when it matters. And that is what will define players and define their careers.
Um, what do Notts need to do against Wimbledon that they didn't do against Doncaster? What tempo, urgency? What do you want to see Saturday that you didn't see against Doncaster?
Yeah, absolutely. That tempo, intensity, just an attacking intent. I know it gets levelled at us for the possession. I know it gets levelled at we're slow, we're sideways, and we're backwards, and what have you. And yeah, I get that at times. But at times you've got to do that. You can't. It's not like a kids' game where you just boot the ball or go forward every opportunity, because you've got a set of decent professionals who have trained to stop you doing that. So you have to be a little bit more clever and patient and wait your opportunity. But that said, you still have possession for a reason, and that's to break another team down and hurt them. Whichever way it is, whichever way you do it, with 25 passes before you cross the halfway line, or with one from Alex Bass forward, with Jatta being big and strong, and whatever it may be, bringing it down, and one or two touches, a second ball maybe, however it may be, you've got to hurt the opposition. Now, again, if you have 65% possession, you think, right, well, that sounds decent. But if you lose the game, it's not decent, obviously. So the possession you're having has not been, it's not been made to be dangerous. It's been possession for the sake of it. So I'd just like to see them, play with that intent to go and win the game, to go and show what a good team they are, because they are good players. They've shown on many occasions this season what a good team and what a good set of players they can be. But now it really matters. Now it's about, right, chest out, shoulders back, go and show people. Never mind, people are questioning Notts, aren't they? Notts fans,
Yes.
it would be fair to say there's a 50-50 split in the fan base about, what they think about this season. Obviously, Stuart, what have you. If I'm a player, go and put that to bed by performing for 3 games. That's all it is. 3 games when it matters. And do you know what? You can go a long way to quelling a lot of the question marks. It won't kill everything, of course it won't. But go and achieve something. Like I say, we have got to bear in mind this is not National League anymore. And this is the Football League, and it is harder and it's more difficult. It's easy to say, not as easy to do. But I do think we've got a good enough squad, good enough players. When you look at the teams that have been promoted this season, we're not here going, well, like last season, Stockport's budget was massive, Wrexham's budget was massive, Mansfield's budget was big, and they've had 4 years of going at it. We're looking at it this year going, Doncaster, Port Vale, Bradford, hold on, we could have been as good as them. We're not. We're the 6th best team in the league. Fact, because the league table says so. Right? But we really could have been up there. We aren't. Like, ifs, buts, and maybes don't count for anything. But this is a season that I think the frustration for most people is that we've said it all along. This is a season where there hasn't been a couple of shining lights in the division that you think, do you know what? If you can get out of them, if we can get anywhere near them, we'll be there and thereabouts. It's been so open, as we know, until the last few weeks. Doncaster win the last 4 games and win the league. Nobody else has got any sort of form. Chesterfield aside, really. So it was there. That was the problem. It was there for the taking. We didn't take it, but now we can take this playoff chance. And I know, like I say, I know everything's doom and gloom, and quite rightly, I'm quite down after Saturday's performance. But we know Notts can pull a performance out of nowhere. They've done it before; they'll do it again, I'm sure. But yeah, they've got to improve from Saturday. That is for certain.
Dale Pikett with an interesting set of statistics. Form table over the last 10 games. First position in the table, Chesterfield. 10th, Wimbledon. 15th, Notts. And Walsall, 21st. So there you go. So you're looking Wimbledon and Notts, well, sort of Wimbledon kind of halfway in the form table, Notts bottom half, Walsall nearly falling out the league, Chesterfield, the in-form team, if you like, of the playoffs. What do Notts need? Okay, give us some reasons why you think there is grounds for optimism for Notts to beat Wimbledon and get to Wembley.
Well, there is, and yeah, I've done the similar sort of stats since we played them at their place.
Yeah.
Since we played them at their place was 12 games. We've had 11 games since then, both
Right.
teams. We've picked up a point more than Wimbledon.
Okay.
And to show you the averageness of this League Two, us and Wimbledon have struggled into the playoffs, they've collected 13 points from their 11 games, and we've collected 14
Okay.
from the last 11 games. And bearing in mind, we're obviously both in more form than Walsall are, who finished above us. So that tells you League Two in a nutshell. So reasons to be positive. A, Wimbledon don't score loads of goals. You know, they are not a team to be feared in terms of, do you know what, we've got to keep it tight because if we don't, they might get 3, 4, and the game might be over in the first leg. No, they haven't. I think in them 11 games, in the last 11 games, they've scored 10 goals, Wimbledon. Okay, not quite a goal a game. So that tells me that, you know what, not defensively, if they perform, Wimbledon are not going to hurt you. So if you go on, win that first leg at home, if not somehow manage to find a performance at home, go and win the first leg and then take that down to Wimbledon in the second leg. And the psyche of them having to make the running, which is not something they naturally do, you know, as a team, they're good defensively, best defense in the league. But you're asking for pros. I'm not going to mention that. But that's the positive for me. That is the positive for me, that this is a team that's built on solidity, being difficult to beat, but they're not going to, no, tempted if I'm going to say, they're not going to hammer you. They are not a team that would obviously, you think, right, if we're not bang at it, they're going to get 3 or 4. Going, yeah, we've got to be bang at it. Of course we have, because they're a good team. But you know what? If we can go and nick 1 or 2, you just never know. With this game, that might be enough. That might be all we need. You know what I mean? And then go down, as we know, we've been better away, picked up more points away from home. So if we went down to Plough Lane with an advantage, then that is an interesting sort of dynamic for that second leg. And that would mean Wimbledon have to come out, and it would mean Notts would be able to play not so much counter-attacking football, but it means there might be space for Notts to exploit. Whereas when we went down to their place in the league, 0-0, one league game, obviously, best team on the day, and they absolutely bullied us. So they are beatable, Wimbledon. They are not in good form. In fact, like I say, depending on how many games you go back, but I'm only going back to when we actually played them last, we've picked up a point more than them. We've scored more goals, and we've both conceded 12. So, you know, technically we're the team in form over 11 games, but none of that matters come these next 2 Saturdays.
Ordinarily, it is viewed as an advantage to play the second game of a 2-legged tie at home. You know, personally, purely personal view, I am not unhappy that we're at home first, because we had this conversation before got on air. I'd take a 0-0 now. Honestly, I would. I would take a 0-0 now. No more, you know, disasters at home. And I think that even at a 0-0, when you're the home team, the onus is on you to make the running. And I think that potentially suits us down at Wimbledon. We've had some terrible home form, but during that period, we've had some very good away results. You know, your Harrogates, your Bradfords. And in a funny way, I think it suits us to be away second leg. Personal view. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't see. It's obviously, with the way it's gone, we've picked up more points away from home than we have at Meadow Lane throughout the league season. So I don't think it hurts us like it might hurt other teams. But unlike you, I would like us to take an advantage. Obviously, I mean, that's stating the obvious, of course. But I think just for the dynamic, and that if we could nick a lead, I say nick a lead at home just to beat Wimbledon at home, we should be beating Wimbledon at home. We beat them at home in the league earlier on in the season. We can do it again. But if we go down there with that lead, I think then that for the whole week between the two legs sets up the mentality. Wimbledon, right? We've got to come out. We've got to come out. We've got to set the pace at home, and Notts can go right. We can bide our time a little bit. We don't have to go and win the game away from home. We want to go and win the game, but we can wait for that space. We can pass the ball sideways and backwards and keep possession if we want to, but obviously with an eye to going forward and hurting Wimbledon and scoring goals, which is the aim of having possession anyway, at home or away. But I think, over two legs, you would think that the best team is going to win. Generally that's what happens. Yes, you need a bit of rub of the green, what have you, but you've got to play well. I think it's a tough game. Of course it is. Wimbledon are a tough team. They don't give you anything for nothing. I say they've got the best defensive record in the league, so they're hard to beat, but they are beatable. Again, this is it. And I think if Notts can just make that home advantage count, which they can do. I know the home form has not been great, but think back to, say, an MK Dons performance. It only takes one performance like that, touch wood, we get a 3-0 lead. That could be tie over, in that first leg. So I'm not disappointed we're away second, because I think we can cope with the away leg, arguably better than the pressure I would be if your home leg was second. So that might do us a favour. But I would like to see us go down there with a lead, absolutely.
Colin Metcalf says our shots on goal does not correlate to our possession. That's a massive problem in my view. Andrew Gregory, hopefully we won't let another large crowd down again on Saturday. Just need to start with a high tempo. Richard Elvin, 2 early goals will give the lads confidence. Conceding early, the opposite. Terry Taylor, I don't think we moved the ball as quickly as we did under Luke Williams. Nobody attacks the box anymore. What else have we got? Richard Elvin, Jody improving game by game. He could make the difference. Be interested to know, asks Andy Eason, when was the last time we went through a league season without a player receiving a red card? Yeah, I think we came to some debate on another show, wasn't it? We're one of only 2 teams not to have had a red card this season. We don't tempt fate on Saturday. We need to play at Meadow Lane as if we are playing away. Simples, says Woolcham. Notts do play better away, so bring it on, says Paul Mantle. Steve Jones, I knew he'd be on. Evening gang from the long-suffering Walsall fan. Paul Edgar, we need Charlie Slater doing commentary. He was a good luck charm at Grimsby on Sky Sports Plus. Have a word, Stell. Marcus Darwin, Stell, you're actually giving me some optimism and belief again. Dale Pikey, only Doncaster and Port Vale with 38 points beat Notts with 37 points collected from away games in the regular season. While Steve's licking his wounds, our Walsall fan who joins us, runners and riders, you spoke a little bit about Notts and Wimbledon. If you're Walsall, where are you right now, Stell? Where are you? I mean, you've done the job. You've got to win. And I presume they're listening or whatever, got the radios out. 96 minutes gone. And you're in League One. 97th minute, you're not. I mean, talk about a reset. They need a reset and a half, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, that is incredible. And what the Walsall fan, if he's listening, I mean, he's got all our sympathy, hasn't he? I mean, all football fans think they go through the mill, don't they? And I think us as Notts fans are as qualified as anybody to say we've been through the mill a few times. But this season for them has been an unbelievable roller coaster. It's just been more of a big dipper, hasn't it? Just one big up, and then all of a sudden a great big massive down, and somehow, despite winning on the last day, they don't get that automatic spot. Look, terrible for them, but they've got a week to get over it, to get ready. They've got a playoff game against Chesterfield. And say, any of these 4 obviously any of the four can win the playoffs. You know, we all talk about momentum, but it doesn't actually win you anything. You know, Chesterfield are the team in form, if you like, with momentum, if you want to call it that. But does that mean they're going to win it? Not necessarily. How many times have we seen upsets in playoffs? How many times do we think something's going to happen and something different does happen? Look, Walsall have finished with 7 extra points than Chesterfield over the season. That's despite their run of form sort of since the turn of the year. So they're a decent team, Walsall. That's what I'm sure Matt Sadler will be trying to instill in them. I'm sure he's been trying to instill it in them for a bit, that they're a decent team and they're there on merit. But like I say, once the playoffs start, it is a bit of a line in the sand. This bit now, you've got a week between league game and then the first playoff game, and then obviously we've got another week till the second leg. That seems a little bit longer to sort of say draw it out a bit, but get your head around where you're at. The league, the hurly-burly of the league's finished. You're potentially 3 games away from promotion. And that is the way that all 4 squads will be looking at it. And they'll be trying to make sure they get the preparation right, make sure they've got everybody fit who they can get fit, and make sure they go into it believing that they can be that one team. One team has got to go up. That's the way you've got to look at it. If you're in bad form, one team's got to go up. So don't worry about it. Just have a go. That's it. You've got to try and get rid of this fear in football and the so-called pressure that's put on it. Somebody's got to win it. Why not us? Go and win it. That's it. It doesn't matter who you support or who you play for. Go and win it. Don't be scared of it.
Chesterfield. I guess lots of people, probably not dissimilar to Doncaster last year, on a remarkable run of form towards the end of the season, got into the playoffs. Oh, Chesterfield are now favourites, and clearly they are the form team. Does sometimes the psychology of being the outsider with not as much pressure on you, can that change when you suddenly almost become the favourites?
But again, it's another example, Paul, of how mental resilience you have to have that in your skill set as a professional, because absolutely the psychology of everything changes. Chesterfield, if you look at the league table, finished 7th, got in there by hook or by crook on the last day, obviously with a good run of form in the final few games. But they're the 7th best team in this division over 46 games. The league table doesn't lie, but they might be coming into it with momentum, and people like us might be saying, "Yeah, Chesterfield are the team to beat. Chesterfield, it's the Chesterfields to lose." And all of a sudden, there's going to be a week now where Chesterfield's players and management and everybody will be having to deal with the fact that their fans are maybe thinking, "Oh, we're in good form here. We're playing Walsall, who aren't in good form. We're favourites." And all of a sudden, there's pressure on them Chesterfield players to perform and go and beat a team that's finished 7 points above them in the division. So the psychology of the playoffs is like I say, it's a different mindset really from the league. The line in the sand is drawn the minute that final league game finishes, and this is like as I say, a mini cup competition now. So then you've got a different headspace, different thing about it, and there's a chance to go and win something, and a chance for obviously to get to Wembley and go and achieve something. So 46 games that have gone, obviously, I'm not saying they don't count for anything, but a lot of that is sort of right. That's done. Now we're into this new competition, and it's one of 4, and we all start on a level playing field. We've all got a 2-legged semi-final and then a final. We've all got as good a chance as each other to win it, really. But like I say, with the psychology and the weight of expectation shifting about, all of a sudden, like I say, we've seen it in the league, haven't we? When teams got to the top, all of a sudden it was difficult to win games. To get there, plenty of teams did that, didn't they? And then fell away. So this is League Two football, and the beauty of lower league football is that because all the players maybe don't have that perfect mindset, maybe they do get affected by pressure, some more than others, then that can play havoc, and that's why you get funny results and results that we didn't expect. And Chesterfield are the form team, so surely it's theirs to lose. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll find out. But look, it's intriguing. But you can make a case for any team because, like I say, in League Two this year, there is not a great deal between any of them top 10 teams, I would say.
Jürgen Halligan says, Stell, can you do the team talk on Saturday, please? If I were a supporter of one of the other teams in the playoffs, says old Bob, the team I would want to play, whether in the semi-final or final, would be Notts. There are three physical teams and then Notts. I mean, this is and Sengersmith's got the odds. Notts are 9-4 favourites with the bookies. Chesterfield are 4-1 outsiders for promotion. Are they really? Doesn't seem a bad value bet. Not that I'm a gambler. We'll come on to kind of like physicality and resilience a little bit later in the programme. Here's one for you and for the flock. What do you think represents the best chance of promotion for Notts? The next three games, i.e. a three-game mini league or knockout tournament, for want of a better phrase, or a 46-game season next year? And the reason I ask that is that a not insignificant number of the fan base are talking about it's not the end of the world if we don't go up. Next year will be better. The head coach will have had more time. We'll make more signings in the summer. Etc., etc., and that I think the phrase is linear progression. Look, I can't say as I'm particularly into it, but you go on a gradual plane. 14th, 6th, we'll be third next year because we'll be a bit better. What do you reckon? Thoughts on that?
Always, always, always take success when you get a chance of it. Always take it now. Don't wait for it down the line because it may never come. Look, it's a lovely phrase. It's a lovely terminology about continual improvement, linear success, however you want to call it. But professional sport is about winning. And if you can win one game, you can win 46 games. If you win 46 games, you win a league. If you enter a league, you want to win it. If you enter a cup, you want to win it. You don't enter it to just be better. Now, as a club, obviously, they can have a philosophy because nobody can continually have success. There's a ceiling, and whether that could be winning the Champions League. Everywhere's down from there, isn't it, for a club? Look at Luton. Look at Luton as an example. I don't think there'll be any of their fans, despite them being relegated to League One this season. I don't think there'll be any of their fans say, do you know what? I wish we'd have just stuck in League One 5 or 6 years ago. Wish we hadn't bothered with that Championship and then the Premier League and coming back down. I don't think any of them do it. Yes, it might not be pleasant when they're getting beat, but you want to test yourself at the highest levels. You want to have success when you can get it. By stepping up a division, automatically should, given the infrastructure at the club, mean that you're going to see better players come to the club. The budgets will increase. You'll see better players and therefore, hopefully, better football. Yes, you'll be playing against better clubs, but that's the competition. That's where you want to test yourself. You should always want to test yourself at as high a level as possible and push yourself, not beyond your means and beyond your limits in terms of a club and budgets and things like that, but absolutely success. I'm not one of these. If and I know people do it and say, well, if we went up, we'd struggle in League One. If we do, we do. But let's go up and have a test. Let's go and test ourselves. Let's go and see what the brothers do then in terms of budget and who they look to bring in and see what the players can do and see, let's get into League One and worry about it then, if you like, as fans and watching on, rather than let's stay in League Two and just have a look at League One from the outside. Well, what's going on in there? I wish that was us. No, actually, I didn't. When we had a chance, I didn't want it to be us because we might have got beat. Absolutely, we can win any game, and that can take you wherever you want to go. So we've seen the three teams go up. I mean, Mansfield have had an up and down season, haven't they? But they've stayed in the division. Obviously, Wrexham and Stockport have flown. Wrexham particularly have flown. Now, I know they've got a big budget, massive budget, but Stockport have as well, but they've done well. There's no reason that Notts can't cope in League One. And by getting in there and acclimatising, absolutely, you manage expectations. And that's something else. I think if we did get promoted, if we did win these playoffs, I think you'd have to manage expectations. Say, we aren't expected, we haven't got the budget to go and have a crack at going straight through. But if we can, set ourselves and have a solid season, stay in League One, gradually build. That's the linear progression I'm after. I'll get to a point where I say, yeah, it's not feasible for Notts to expect to, be in Europe in 4 years' time. That's not feasible without some Saudi sheikhs coming in and making friends with the brothers. But realistically, is it feasible for Notts to sink or swim in League One? Well, let's find out. I think they might swim, but I don't want to go. Do you know what? I'll stay in the kiddies pool while all the big kids go and play in the big pool because I don't want to risk going out of my depth. That's not my mentality. I don't think it's many professionals' mentality.
Yeah, I try and remember. I love the kiddies swimming pool and the adult pool and being out your depth. I love that. Yeah, and look, I am totally with you, Stel, and I do think generationally there is a big difference right now in expectations of the Notts fan base. There will be people that grew up with Jimmy Cyril, Neil Warnock, Sam Allardyce, all people who were, like you've enunciated there, very ambitious people and always trying to take the next step, always desperate to get up the next rung of the ladder. Keep climbing, keep climbing. And, I've read some comments which surprised me a little bit, where they say you can't expect Notts to be challenging for promote to go up this year because we were a National League club for 4 years and it's unreasonable to do so. Look, Chesterfield have made the playoffs in their first season back in the Football League. So don't tell me it can't be done. And I don't know what the budgets are, but I suspect Chesterfield's and Notts' budgets are not a million miles apart and both competitive to get promotion. But this, I think, is where I think it's an interesting debate. The younger Notts fans who've watched Notts in the National League for 4 years and seen us kick around in the bottom division for the previous 4, this to them, it's okay. But for me, I struggle with us somehow saying this is kind of our level. But I appreciate I come from a different era of fans. And I think this is part of the frustration with an element of our fan base at the minute. Everyone accepts we play fantastic football, but it's that desire for results. It's that real desire for results. Some people perhaps are more happy for us, for me, and we shouldn't discuss what we will end up discussing after this season has finished, but for me, I would be incredibly disappointed if we don't go up this season. And I do mean really disappointed. Right now, you can't say it's a bad season because you can go up through the playoffs, but going up through the playoffs is totally different to failing in the playoffs, isn't it? And that's where I think the mental resilience, mental strength, and those sorts of things start to come into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it tests your mental resilience watching and being a supporter, doesn't it? Like,
not wrong
but it
there.
does. But I don't mean that flippantly. I mean,
No.
you think of what did we say at the start of the season before a ball had been kicked? We wanted promotion. I think me and you slightly differed, didn't we? Promotion. I said playoffs would be, par for the course. I think, as long as we're around playoffs with a chance of promotion, that would be okay. I think you said anything other than promotion would be a failure.
But for
And
me,
here we
yeah,
are now, 46 games gone, and the roller coaster. We've had some really good, we've had some pretty bad, but we've been up and down. And I'm sure people's emotions start swinging one way or another, from optimism when things are going well to pessimism and doom and gloom when things are going badly, and back and forth. And here we are now, still 46 games in, actually in the playoffs. And these 3 games will more than likely dictate how, I would say, 80 to 90% of the fan base actually view the season.
absolutely. Yeah.
There will be, maths might be all out, but there might be sort of 10% at either end of the spectrum, something like that, that won't change their mind no matter what. It would be that Maynard out, Maynard in, be that, not good enough, be that, no, we're where we should be, and they won't change their mind. The 80% in the middle will probably be waiting to see what happens in these 3 games to nail their colours to the mast of about, well, do you know what? If we get promoted, how can I say it's been a terrible season? How can I want the manager out if we're promoted? And
Exactly.
vice versa. there might be a few going the other way if we don't get promoted, going, yeah, it was terrible. It's been, so that is the mental sort of stress test it puts fans and everybody through. That's what happens in football. But like I say, as we are here and now, we are 3 games away from League One. And no, I mean, as much as anybody says, well, maybe we won't do so well in League One. I don't mind if we stay in League Two. Nobody actually wants us to stay in League Two. Not now we're here, so let's go and win it. Let's go and win these games and finish with a smile on our face and go, well, it's a typical Notts County season, hasn't it? Roller coaster up and down and everywhere. But we eventually got over the line. We've got a chance. We have got a chance. Not saying it's going to happen, but, we, like you, Paul, I think we have got to be careful. Then 4 years in the non-league, I think spoilt us a little bit because the quality of the opposition, competitors that we're playing against, we were like a shark in a pool of goldfish, really, maybe 1 or 2 teams aside. So we got where we should have got to, but it still took us 4 years then. So success is never a gimme. You have to go and earn it. And Notts have still got a chance. They've got 3 games to go and earn it this season. If they want more plaudits from us, they need to win the 3 games. If they want to get sticks and stones and, criticism, we know which way that's going to go, dependent on results.
Yeah, I think you did kind of paraphrase that very well in terms of 3 games shape the entire season. And it's all very well that's not fair, playoffs are luck, whatever. But that's the margins between winning and losing, isn't it? Neil Warnock never got an automatic promotion for Notts County. He got 2 playoffs. And in one of them years, everyone forgets this, that they promoted 4 teams out of the 2nd tier into the top division because it was all about expanding or something or other with the Premier League or the Forerunner at that time. No one remembers that, nor particularly should they, but it did what needed to be done. And I think personally, one of the challenges that Ian faces, that Stuart faces, is when you look at the other promotion winning teams, I think I'm right in saying all the 6 teams that have been automatic in the last 2 years, they've all had managers that have previously won promotions. And there is a certain amount of Football League experience and experience of winning promotions, which buys them a bit of time, buys them a bit more respect. And I think in the eyes of some of our fans, the stick, unfortunately, that can be used against Stuart at the moment is, we want you to be a winner. We want you to be a winner, but there isn't anything right at this moment in time that says you are a winner. You have got a promotion on your CV. And I've said, like you say, these 3 games shape everything. Stuart gets us promoted, double his wages, treble his wages, right? He's earned it. He's earned it because his job is to get this club promoted. I don't see, I've said this before, when you've got a club averaging over 10,000 in League Two, the second highest supported club, fantastic owners. I think everybody agrees on that. The way they build stability at the club, recruitment metrics, all of those sorts of things. With all of those things, we should be getting promotion. We should be getting. What's the point of having great owners? What's the point of doing all these things? For me, everything ladders up, getting promoted and playing as a higher standard as you can. Like Luton, when they came here, went up the divisions, coming back down again, but they've been up there, haven't they? I remember us playing Bournemouth. I don't think you were covering Notts then, Stel. Bournemouth played Bournemouth not that long ago. Brighton won the title here. They've all gone on upward trajectories and are very, very well-run clubs. And I don't think anybody's saying Notts is anything but a well-run club. But so far, in 6 years, we've got 1 promotion from the National League to the Football League, and that brings with it pressures.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, professional sport is about winning. And if you don't win, then you leave yourself open to criticism. You leave yourself open to stick, and people will look for. You mentioned there about Neil Warnock getting no automatic promotion. Nobody looks forensically at it like that for his history because he got 2 promotions. It doesn't matter how or where or why. It's about getting it done, and that's all that we really care about in the grand scheme of things. And you've mentioned some clubs there. and we to God hope that Notts have a trajectory like a Brighton or a
Coventry,
Bournemouth.
another one. Coventry, another
Yeah,
one.
yeah. We hope we have a trajectory like that in what 8, 10 years time. We're talking about being around the Premier League, and we'll look back and go, do you remember us winning the playoffs or not winning the playoffs and then get promoted the next season? Nobody be bothered because where we are, as long as we go forward, but with the here and now, we can't go forward for 8, 10 years. We want it now and we don't want to wait and we shouldn't wait. Like I say, it's down to the players now to go and grab it. Go and grab it with both hands because they're more than capable of doing it. They've let themselves down on a few occasions. Let themselves down recently, I think, at home. Certainly on Saturday. I that was, like I say, I've praised them a lot this season and said I think we have got a decent team full of decent players. And I thought somebody was going to get a shoe in at some point. Never proved me right. I was wrong about that. But I still think they're decent players and they've got performance in there. I think they lack with maybe a little bit of belief, a little bit of consistency, but now's the chance. It's not a league season you've got to go through now. It's two games and then the cup final, if you like. So go and do it. Now's the time to go and perform. You've got the tools, you've got the ability. Now's the time to go and do it and go and show how good you can be. And sort of everything else won't be forgotten about, but it'll be washed over if you go and achieve and go and get that promotion spot.
You mentioned earlier that without David McGoldrick, we were poor on Saturday. How pivotal, there is this kind of like vision that a lot of us have in our minds that David McGoldrick, the Notts County fan, come back to finish his career. There's a potential script waiting to be written for him.
Yeah, absolutely. If you believe in them sort of things, but football does have a way, doesn't it, of and sport in general, but throwing up moments that you think you wouldn't believe that if Hollywood wrote it. But yeah, David McGoldrick's been excellent. Cleaned up with the Players' Player of the Year and the Fans' Player of the Year, didn't he, at the weekend?
Yeah.
And even took Goal of the Season to boot as well, which George Abbott might have had one or two things to say about. But yeah, he took everything. But I think that tells you how he's thought of. His ability's unquestionable. He's got ability that's better than the level. So he won't be phased by a playoff
Mm.
campaign, and having him around the dressing room can only be a good thing. But more important than most, you want David McGoldrick, the player, the quality footballer, going out on the pitch because he can win you. He can win you the games. He can win you the playoffs on his own, with his ability, obviously with his teammates around him doing their bit as well. But he's a match winner. He's got a bit of stardust, and he could be the difference, between having a David McGoldrick fit and available for the playoffs as against not having him. It could make a massive difference. It could be the difference between what division we're kicking off next season in.
Okay. Right, we'll come to the end of the show. Don't want to linger too long this evening. I'm sure we're all getting mentally preparing ourselves. And I think I should just perhaps, because I've had quite a few people contact me, I think we're all rather surprised by the sequence of events in terms of the timing of these games. To reiterate, just so everybody fully understands the situation, Notts should have been playing on the Sunday, but couldn't. Because Forest were at home to Leicester. Therefore, as the game was being televised live by Sky and the Football League had to find a slot on either a Saturday or a Monday that would not compete against other domestic programmes or the 3 o'clock watershed on Saturday. That's how it's ended up at the rather unfortunate time for many of 8 o'clock on Saturday. I'd also advise you all get there early because it's also the boxing. Lee Wood is fighting at the arena on the same night. So I suspect it's going to be very busy and congested around Nottingham. So do give yourselves plenty of time to get in. Now, I think the one that caught us all on the hop was the away game. That was due originally to be 12:30 on Saturday, no problem. Then for some bizarre reason, Sky and the Football League put it out as Friday night, which I think caught everybody on the hop, including Notts. So we're all scrambling around. I know of some people that purchased train tickets on the Friday afternoon and the Friday night. And one or two of you, I know, purchased hotels based on that. And then about an hour later, I know not why, it was then reverted back to the original time of 12:30. So there you go. That's how we've arrived at that. It's not being awkward, or anything with these games and changing them around. That's kind of the sequence of events. Tickets are on sale now for the home game. The away leg, Notts, I think, are announcing later this week the details for the away game at Wimbledon, which will be 12:30. So that'll be an early start. Maybe the BBC will be raiding that piggy bank, because didn't they put you up overnight on Epsom Downs, on Epsom Racecourse in a tent last time?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were overlooking it. Yeah, we were overlooking Epsom Racecourse for the league game. So. But the only problem is we got beat, didn't we? We were terrible in that league game, so it was superstitious. They maybe need to find us a different hotel. Give us a tent or something. We'll pitch it up somewhere. But yeah, not ideal, is it, for anybody travelling down to get down to Wimbledon for a lunchtime kickoff on the Saturday? And I think is it final day as well? Did somebody say?
Yes, you're right. It is cup final day, although isn't that a later kickoff about 5 o'clock?
Usually a late kickoff. I don't know. When obviously it's not often the cup final's the second most important game of the day, but it will be that day. But yeah, so whether I'm assuming we'll be down there overnight for that one, but plans have not been put in place yet.
Yeah, and you will obviously be in the commentator's chair on Saturday evening. Is it Adam this week, or?
Yeah, I think Adam. Yeah, I think that's it. Adam now till we hit League One, maybe. But yeah, I think Adam's doing it. I like I say again, I don't get any confirmation, but if Notts have got cricket, Dave will be doing that, and Adam will be doing the football. So yeah, we fingers crossed he brings us some luck. I say I've been speaking to Charlie today actually about playing a game of golf at some point. So if he's the lucky mascot for the playoffs, I'll at least be seeing him and hopefully taking a few quid off him on the golf course as well. So see if that brings us some luck.
Very good. And just look, let's finish on a positive, Stel. Let's finish on a positive. Because I guarantee you, every single person that was disenfranchised after Saturday's game, they've all got the tickets for Saturday, right? And we'll all be trying to get the tickets for the trip to Wimbledon. Give us a reason to be positive going into this playoff series of games.
Well, aside from what I've already mentioned, we have got the two highest individual scorers out of any team in the playoffs. Okay, so they can win us games. What more reason to be positive?
And you are talking there, I assume, about Mr. Jatta and Mr. McGoldrick.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing what can be served up in over the next 11 days. Stel, thank you as always for tonight. Thank you to everyone for all your comments and thank yous and support. Thank you, obviously, to our official partners, JH Accountants and the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation. We will be back next week when it will be half time of our playoff series against Wimbledon. Here's to well, yeah, I mean, of course I want to win on Saturday, but for me the business end of this game is down at what's it, the Cherry Records Stadium, I think, is it called now?
Something like that, yeah.
Let's hope we get a tune out of Notts down there. Thank you very much indeed for all your participation tonight. We look forward to catching you next week. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.
Cheers.